I was told by the FBI in November that I'm being physically monitored on campus by agents of the CCP.
This man named Charles Chan approached you on the internet?
Yeah, exactly. I found a lot of other students who had been reached out to. It seemed like he'd been doing this for years and people were really put off by what he was saying, but no one had actually reported it to anyone. After I started writing on it and making it very public, then I started getting weird, threatening emails and phone calls. And one of them actually mentioned something about my mom, but I hung up very quickly. That was really...
今天的工商时间是我们的老干爹 VANA。VANA
这是一个可以让空间瞬间变得很高级的东西，而且现在呢是他们的品牌9周年庆活动推出了超多香氛买一送一哦。
这是 VANA 特别携手瑞典国宝级设计师 Lisa Larson 推出限量联名系列，他们把 Lisa Larson 最经典的猫咪系列 Mikey 还有狮子 Leo 做成了香氛蜡烛跟扩香瓶哦。
这次的设计真的超级可爱，而且重点是买这一次的联名蜡烛搭配香氛暖灯竟然可以直接再折1000元哦。
而且这次的 Coast No.7 这个灯啊，设计完全是我的菜，设计非常简单，就是有那种北欧设计感，然后它的金属架子啊，再搭配这个暖暖的木头色，我觉得搭配在一起很好看。然后它的这个是暖灯嘛，然后就不用点火，你只要开上去就直接可以有那个香氛的味道，在家里用起来就很安心。
我觉得这个绿很漂亮欸。
对啊，这个是我觉得这个今年这个绿就是
这是什么绿？这要怎么称呼？
我不知道，
因为它也不是那么
纯
纯金属的绿。
我跟你说，这个感觉就是 Ivy 会有的包的那种绿，那他就走在时尚，
我听不懂是什么意思，
因为他就走在时尚的很前面，所以他都会入手这种颜色的话，我觉得就是应该是 OK 的。
哇天哪，你还顺便捧老婆欸
不然呢？
所以你最喜欢哪一种味道？
其实我自己的话，一定选那个狮子那一款夏日暖湿 Leo， 它的味道就是柠檬再加上草本的香气，就是闻起来很明亮清爽，那非常干净。我这样说好了，就是假设你现在家里就是有很多刚洗好的衣服或者很多脏袜子丢在地上，可是如果你点了这个味道Leo 的味道的话，你进到家里就觉得说啊，我家好干净，你懂吗？就是这个味道就是给你一个幻觉，说我家就是整洁干净的样子。
为什么刚洗好衣服要配上肮脏的袜子？听起来好恶哦。
就是你没有放在篮子里面 I don't know 我不知道，让大家想象一下嘛。
为什么要用香味掩饰你的脏乱？
不是掩饰，它是给你一个幻觉。
OK 我自己最爱是另外一款是这个猫咪的缤纷花园 Mikey， 它是玫瑰融合蜂蜜，还带有点草莓的微甜气息。这个味道很适合放在房间里，闻起来就是很有恋爱的感觉，就是点了就是觉得可以开始恋爱。
那我闻一下Mikey 这个味道
怎么样？
味道
是不是很不错？
蛮危险的。
为什么？
就是有前女友家的味道。
前女友的味道？
前女友家的味道家。
你最近有去哦？
没有。
哇，你为什么记得这个他家是什么味道？
Lisa Larson 的 Mikey 跟 Leo 呢都印在扩香瓶跟蜡烛上面，所以摆起来让家里看起来很温暖很有个性哦。
所以你前女友是那种很有温暖又个性吗？
我说的是 Lisa Larson 的设计。
所以现在在业配里缅怀前女友，你前面先称赞老婆，后面再缅怀前女友。哇，你道德无底线欸你
大家赶快趁这次9周年去逛逛
在加州我来讲，大家Ken 已经被我击溃了，大家赶快趁这次的 VANA 9周年庆去逛逛，现在买指定香氛暖灯还会直接送你一颗价值1580的250G 的大蜡烛，结账的时候输入我们的专属折扣码 I believe 优惠可以再享88折，赶快点资讯栏的连结去看看吧。
他家真的很香
I know
Welcome to the KK Show, this is Ken.
我是凯莉。
今天我们要做一个跨海的 interview， 对吗？
算是
interview。那我们今天邀请的来宾呢是 Elsa Johnson， 那她最近才在美国的那个国会做了一个 testimony，right？然后为什么呢？因为她其实是在史丹佛大学的哈佛研究院，然后在做中国影响力的研究。可是她在研究的过程中呢，遇到了中国的影响。
对，他遇到有陌生男子，然后私讯他要跟他接触，
对，
然后说可以赞助他去上海旅游等等。那这些讯息我们也收过 ，We actually received the same message too. It's really common in Taiwan. We can talk about this later. 然后我们觉得非常酷，而且重点是还去了国会作证这件事情。
对。
So we invite Elsa Johnson to our show.
Yay!
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So Elsa, when I was doing research, I found out that you actually learned Chinese since you were in kindergarten. Like, how? Like,
why? How and why?
How and why? And you were in Minneapolis. I mean, was there a big Chinese community? Like, what's going on?
Yeah. So my parents found the school. We were moving from Colorado to Minnesota, and they were looking for somewhere for my siblings and I to go to school. And they found this Chinese immersion school in Minneapolis, Minnesota. You know, there is a Chinese population in Minnesota, but I wouldn't say it's very significant. We were, you know, affiliated with the Confucius Institute. So there was definitely, you know,
Confucius Institute.
CCP influence there.
So the school that you went to is actually 孔子学院?
No, affiliated with.
Affiliated with.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so we were Confucius Classroom of the Year.
Oh, wow.
And we had a sister school in China. You know, all of my teachers were Chinese. I had a couple Taiwanese teachers, but you know, I grew up giving tours to Chinese officials. So it was definitely, you know, maybe United Front.
United.
So.
Oh, wow. So I didn't know you were like that close with China. I mean, according to your testimony, it seems very different.
Yeah, I only realized in retrospect that, you know, it was CCP affiliated, but growing up in that environment, I didn't really think anything of it. And, you know, I loved my education there. It was very rigorous. But yeah, now I sort of see it for what it is.
I'm just super curious about like what it was like in the school. Like, do they teach you just normal stuff, like, you know, like how to read Chinese and Chinese culture, or do they like implement some, you know, CCP influence inside? I don't know. What was it like?
Yeah, so it was a lot of just basic, you know, elementary, middle school education. They had to fulfill state requirements, so a lot of it was normal, but we also spent a lot of time learning about Chinese history and Chinese culture. Every year we did a Chinese New Year performance with over 2,000 people in the audience. Wow. And we had to learn Kung Fu or sing or do a performance based on the zodiac of the year. So none of it, we learned, I would say, you know, I never had a bad impression of China going to that school. Okay. And I never really learned about the realities of the CCP.
But it sounds like they give you like the good part of the Chinese culture though, right?
Yeah. I did really enjoy it, and I did really well at that school, but yeah, there was definitely no negativity about China.
Oh, I see. So have you visited China before you go to college?
No, I've actually never been. I was supposed to go in 2020, but because of COVID, I couldn't go. I was supposed to do a program through the State Department at Nanjing University. And then the following year, I was actually supposed to go to Taiwan, but I was also unable to go because of COVID. So I've never been.
No, that's too bad.
I know.
But like once you got into Stanford, like did you just choose like I'm going to continue on with my Chinese and Asian studies? Like what was it like?
Yeah, so when I applied to Stanford, I applied to study East Asian studies. I knew I wanted to continue studying China. You know, both language, culture, history. Yeah, so I knew very early on. I switched to international relations for a time, but I realized I wanted to get really into, you know, more of the Chinese classes. So, yeah, I've been studying East Asian studies and plan on continuing.
Yeah, but what sparked your interest in Chinese industrial strategy and military tactics? I mean, military tactics.
Yeah, so I'm very interested in national security. I think that's a big passion of mine. I, you know, love the USA. I also love Taiwan and you know, want to study what China, you know, is planning on doing. And so when I started researching these things, I actually wasn't planning on researching these topics. I was just planning which researchers I wanted to work for at the Hoover Institution, which is a think tank on campus. And they were studying, I was doing research then on the Chinese EV industry as well as Chinese military tactics. And it was just super interesting and definitely right up my alley.
But as you progress with your study, like did your perception of China change compared to when you were little in Confucius Institute? I mean, yeah,
definitely. I would say not as much through my classes at Stanford. I think a lot of my classes at Stanford are still very positive about China. There are a couple classes like, you know, I took a class on the evolution of Taiwan's democracy.
Oh, wow.
And that was really great. And, obviously was very pro-Taiwan. But beyond that, I haven't taken many classes that have been very critical of China. It's mostly just learning information about how the Chinese economy works or religions in China. So what really changed my perspective was doing research at the Hoover Institution. And that's, early on when I started working there, I had a conversation with, one of the researchers I was working for about Chinese CCP recruitment tactics and how they try to get American researchers, not just American, but, foreign researchers to collaborate with them. And they, offer to pay, and they use different carrots and sticks to get people to travel to China, and then they can eventually become more threatening.
Yeah. So you heard about it, and then it actually happened to you, right? Like this man named Charles Chan approached you on the internet. Did he approach you through Instagram, or how did he found you?
Yeah, so it was kind of crazy because I think maybe a week or so after I had that conversation with my boss, Charles Chen reached out to me on Instagram, and he first messaged me by saying, "Have we met on campus before?" And we had a lot of mutual followers on Instagram. He had photos of himself at Stanford, so I really thought he was another Stanford student, and this wasn't weird. A lot of Stanford students connect through Instagram.
Yeah.
But then he very quickly, it very quickly became weird because he asked in Chinese if I speak Chinese. He said, 你会说中文吗? And I was like, yes, but how did you know that? And he said, 我猜的.
What?
And so I was really put off by that, and that was really concerning. And that's sort of when I started documenting the conversation and seeing where it went. And it got very weird after that.
Yeah, not to be racist, but by looking at you, I wouldn't assume that you know Chinese. I'm just saying.
Yeah, exactly.
So what happened afterwards?
Yeah, so then I continued talking to him. I was already suspicious, but I kind of just wanted to collect information, I guess. I just wanted to see what would happen.
For research purpose, right?
Yeah, exactly. And he, started kind of trying to invite me to China and asking whether or not I'd been to China. He asked where my family was from. And, I said I'd never been to China, and he said, you really should go. And then, he offered to pay for me to go to China, and he sent me a screenshot of his bank account to prove that he could afford it. He sent me videos of, Americans who had gone to China and gotten rich and famous for having YouTube channels and being able to speak Mandarin. And then he also was urging me to move the conversation off Instagram and onto WeChat. And so that was also very suspicious to me, because I know that WeChat is, it's not safe. It's monitored. And so that, I think the alarm bells were really going off at that point. And I hit the breaking point with him when he commented in Chinese under one of my posts, asking me to delete screenshots of our conversation. And I had no idea how he knew I had been screenshotting it, because I know how Instagram screenshotting works, and nothing that I would have taken screenshots of would have notified him. So it was just very scary. And at that point, I cut off the conversation.
Oh, the post that he was commenting under was just a normal post, right? A normal photo.
Yeah.
It's not like a screenshot of your conversation, right?
Right. Yeah. And the other thing is, he also knew the whereabouts of Stanford students who were in China at that time.
Wow.
So there's this one girl I know, she was in China traveling during the time of Charles Chen and I's correspondence. And she had actually been reached out to him years prior, and she had blocked him on everything. So it was very strange and concerning that he knew that she was in China.
Oh, wow.
你知道吗？现在 iOS 26可以支援 eSIM 自动切换的功能呢。
来，你翻译一下，我听不懂。
终于轮到我翻译了，就是如果你出国有装旅游 eSIM 到当地之后呢 iPhone 就会自动切换到旅游方案，回台湾之后呢又会自动切回原本的门号。
哇，这么厉害，所以人类终于不用在机场研究那个设定页面了吗？
真的，而且台湾人那么爱出国，这个功能其实蛮有感的
尤其现在暑假快到了，大家的演算法应该都开始出现旅游啊机票这种影片了吧？
我觉得应该是你的演算法特别知道你的喜好但我发现很多人订机票订住宿很认真，网路反而是最后才处理。
对啊，以前最惨就是落地之后没有网路，然后到机场还要找机场 WiFi， 然后看怎么办才好。
所以我自己出国都直接用 Sally eSIM， 出发前先在 App 里面买好方案，到当地开机就直接有网路，不用换 SIM 卡，也不用找电信门市。
而且不管是日本、韩国、美国还是欧洲，多数热门旅游地区都能直接使用哦。
App 里面还可以查看流量使用状况，也有 VPN 跟广告阻挡功能。最近如果有出国的计划，先可以把网路准备好。下载 Sally App 或直接资讯栏点击连结，结账输入Bailingguo专属优惠码 KKVPN， eSIM 方案直接享85折优惠哦。
It sounds like he's like a Chinese spy whose task is to monitor Stanford students.
Yeah, exactly. And based on
you guys.
Right. And based on conversations I had afterwards, I found a lot of other students who had been reached out to by Charles Chen. And so it seemed like he'd been doing this for years.
Wow.
And people were really put off by what he was saying, but no one had actually reported it to anyone. So I was lucky that I was, doing research with people who were willing to help me. But it was just very concerning.
Who did you first reach out to after you found out like the whole thing was getting too much, too strange?
Yeah, I reached out to my research lead at the Hoover Institution. And then he put me in touch with another researcher, and then he put me in touch with the FBI. So the Hoover Institution has an FBI contact because this kind of thing happens a lot. And so that's how I, initially made contact with the FBI and realized this was not just a weird scam, and it actually was something more concerning.
Wow.
So what happened after FBI approached you?
Yeah. What did they say? Did they say, are you you're in danger, or what?
Yeah. Did you get any threats afterwards?
Yeah. So in my initial interaction with the FBI, I didn't get any threats because it was all very private. And, I wasn't telling anyone beyond the FBI and the people at Hoover what had happened. After I started writing on it and doing journalism and making it very public, I wrote a piece for the Stanford Review, which is where I do journalism on campus, and also for the Times of London. Then I started getting weird, threatening emails and phone calls. So this summer, I got a lot of phone calls when I was working in Washington, D.C. The caller would say hello in English, and I would say hello back, and then they would switch to Mandarin. So that was really kind of scary, I think. And one of them actually mentioned something about my mom, but I hung up very quickly. And I also got emails threatening to sue me, saying that if I don't take down all of my writing on this, that I would be sued and that I needed to issue an apology. And I recently also got a phone call right after I went out for dinner with my sisters. The caller switched to Mandarin and asked me whether or not I had finished eating dinner. So, and then, and I was also told by the FBI in November that I'm being physically monitored on campus by agents of the CCP. So it has gotten very threatening. I still feel pretty safe, but yeah, it's definitely concerning.
Wow. Agents of CCP on campus. So probably I would assume some international students undercover.
Yeah, definitely that. And yeah, who knows? Who
right?
else? I was given very little information. I was just told that it wasn't digital, and that if I felt followed or watched, I should, tell the FBI. But if the threat becomes imminent and they, physically attack me or something happens, I should call the police. So that was the last time I talked to the FBI about.
That doesn't sound reassuring though, like being attacked. Oh my God.
Did that change your life on campus? I mean, have you have any like Chinese or Taiwanese international friends? Does that stop you from making friends with them? Because everyone looks really suspicious from then.
And also, thank you for agreeing to be on our podcast. I mean.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think it definitely has had an impact on my interactions with Chinese international students. I've had some friends who have kind of distanced themselves from me, which I understand. I think, you don't want to be friends with someone who's very publicly anti-CCP if you live in China. But I've also met a lot of people through the work I've done, and I think that's been really encouraging, meeting people who are on my side and who are also critical of the CCP. So it has, its pros and cons, but I definitely think it's important to keep talking about it because a lot of people are facing similar transnational repression but can't say anything about it.
Yeah, definitely. But did you tell the school administration about your experience though?
So I was told by the FBI that they actually told the Stanford administration as well as the Stanford Police Department. And so, a lot of people know at this point what's happening. And I've not been contacted by anyone at Stanford. I think they really don't want to address it because, Stanford, like many other universities in the US, get a lot of money from Chinese international students because they pay full tuition. And they might also receive donations from the Chinese Scholarship Council or, Chinese money through roundabout ways. So I think, they definitely don't want to say anything.
Wow.
Then what brought you to the Congress to do the testimony?
Yeah, so I had actually been in contact with some staffers at the Committee on Workforce and Education, and they reached out after my co-author Garrett and I published a bunch of our articles, and they, were hosting a hearing on transnational repression and sort of what's happening on campus with foreign students, particularly Chinese international students. And so they felt that my testimony would be really valuable because I've, experienced transnational repression and I'm an American student. So it just goes to show that this can happen to anyone.
Yeah.
So I think it was really an honor to be invited there, and I'm glad it's really, raised awareness.
After your experience, did you try to do more research on the transnational influence by the CCP? Did you try to find out how they are trying to infiltrate the American colleges?
Yeah, so I've done some research on this, and I actually have some more articles coming out about CCP influence at Stanford. I think one of the concerning things that I talked about in my testimony is a lot of our universities have a student club called the Association of Chinese Students and Scholars. And this is a known United Front organization. A lot of universities have them. Stanford's one of them. They receive yearly funding from Stanford. And I actually checked their funding documents from last year, and they spent either $30,000 or $50,000 of their $64,000 Stanford money for video equipment at their Lunar New Year party.
Oh,
so it's just very
That's a lot.
bizarre, and I'm not sure why you would need to spend that much money on video equipment.
Yeah.
But that, the Association of Chinese Students and Scholars is an organization that, monitors Chinese international students as well as students who are, members of a diaspora community. So, there are organizations like that exist just out in the open and no one really addresses it. But there are also, some more secretive, more nefarious ways that the CCP has influence at Stanford. And one of the big ways is funding.
And did you talk to anyone who actually went to the trip to China, and what was it like?
Yeah, so actually my friend and co-author who, wrote the articles in the Stanford Review with me, his name's Garrett. He went on a Stanford trip to China. Not one that was offered
Not
by
the sponsored one?
Instagram,
Not the shady
but
ones.
one that was organized through Stanford.
Oh, I
And
see.
they met with a lot of people who are really high up in the CCP.
Wow.
These researchers are very friendly with
Yeah.
CCP members. And, my friend talked about how he went to a dinner and this CCP member was very openly talking about how, the Chinese government will help write applications to get Chinese students into elite universities in the United States. And, they talk very openly about this, and
That's so
people just turn a
what?
blind eye to it. And, it was one of those trips where they went and visited factories, and any interaction they had with a Chinese citizen had to be, they had to have a police officer near them at all times to make sure their interactions were, okay.
Wow.
So it was very strange. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, because
Stanford
Sounds like North Korea.
yeah, because normally, like from our past experiences with China, like they don't do that kind of like tight grip kind
Yeah.
of activities, right? But
Yeah, I think it's because this was, a Stanford trip, and this professor who leads the trips is very close with them, and they were visiting villages and cities, and I think in the villages they wanted to make sure especially that
yeah,
people were on their best behavior,
yeah,
and no one was saying anything that could be negative.
Yeah, that's true, because there might be a lot of social issues in the villages
Yeah,
that
that's
the
big.
Chinese government don't want any outsiders to know.
yeah,
Exactly.
definitely.
But that's still crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it
so
is.
different
It's
from like
absolutely
a
insane.
few years ago. Wow, that's crazy. So, are you still planning on going to China?
Nah.
I was advised not to, so the FBI told me I can't go. But I definitely would love to visit Taiwan
Yeah.
sometime soon.
If you come to Taiwan, please let us know.
Let us know.
We will
Just
host you. We'll
we'll bring
organize
you to
stuff for you.
something fun, and we
That would be great.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to go. It's number one on my bucket list. So
Nice.
Aw, so
Soon.
awesome. Well, actually, I have a question though, because you went to Congress to testify earlier this year. Has the testimony changed you? Like, have more people reach out to you, or what has your life changed since then?
first of all, Stanford, even though they didn't say anything, Stanford has a helpline to report, just broad campus issues, whether that's discrimination or harassment, things like that. They actually added transnational repression to the list of things you can report,
Oh, that's
which
a
is
big
good.
change. Yeah.
It's a good start. I'm very happy about that. And I have also been contacted by a lot of other people, not by Stanford, but a lot of, people who agree with me and want to, continue to support the work I'm doing. And I've also started getting more threatening messages.
Ooh.
I've been getting emails that are really threatening. So, that's obviously really concerning. And I think people kind of recognize me on campus a little more, so they're kind of cautious and not sure what to say to me. But I think overall it's been very positive.
But I heard that as far as I understand, a lot of scholars have a really close relationship with the Chinese government because of research purposes, not always politically.
Right.
But does that are you afraid that your grade might be affected by some of the
Professors.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely think it's harder for me to participate in some of my classes on China. I think, a lot of Chinese students tend to take those classes, and I am very wary of my place there. And I think, it can be threatening to some people. And I think there are a lot of people who are also just not fans of what I do. So I think that's really hard because I'm trying to study China in a space that can't really be anti-China in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
And so it definitely has affected me. And, I was going to take a class on the Chinese family this quarter, and on the first day of class, a guy in the class announced to the class that he said, "Oh, you're on TV," and then everyone was asking me what I did, what I testified on. That kind of thing is hard for me because I don't want to be this public figure. But I have a lot of support from people at the Hoover Institution, and I think that's really helpful. But yeah, it's not all good.
Yeah.
Have you ever approached by like a Chinese student who are like secretly appreciated what you have done? Because that would be my experience, but I went to school like 15 years ago when a lot of Chinese people, even though they don't publicly criticize the Chinese government, but they are all critical of what their government is doing.
Yeah, so I have been reached out to or contacted by Chinese citizens who are secretively appreciative of my work. So I think that's really encouraging, and it makes me feel really good that people, that I might be empowering to some people, or that I might be a safe person to talk to for some of these people who are facing transnational repression.
But you've been studying Chinese culture since your childhood. Like, now do you feel like a betrayal by the Chinese government? like I've been learning so much about you, and now you're doing this to me. Like, what do you feel?
Yeah, I do think it's really sad, and I do think there is kind of a betrayal. I guess it's not really a betrayal because I should have known maybe, but I didn't grow up in a space where I would have ever learned about how the CCP operates. And so, I think it is sad to realize that a lot of the joy that I've got from learning about China and about, Chinese history and culture, it is sort of tainted by the fact that the CCP hates me and, doesn't want me to, that I might, get held in prison if I visit China or something. I think, it's really sad. And I do still love a lot of China and what I learned about it. I just hate the CCP. And I think, unfortunately, the CCP makes it impossible to separate the two.
Oh, but sounds like you're still trying to separate the CCP, the culture and the people, right? Because
yeah, definitely. I think, I grew up we hosted Chinese international students in my house growing up. I obviously loved all of my teachers that I had growing up, and I've had a lot of Chinese friends who, are really close friends. So I also think, Chinese students and Chinese citizens in general don't want to be working for the CCP. In a lot of cases, it's not their choice. But I can't imagine, being threatened by my government while my family is living in that country. I think they're put in a really bad place, and it's really heartbreaking to see. But it's also just the unfortunate reality of what's happening. And, growing up with a lot of Chinese friends and hosting Chinese international students in my house, I think of them, and they're amazing people, and China has such a rich culture, so it is really heartbreaking. So that's why I keep talking about it, because I think it's important to raise awareness, knowing a lot of these people can't speak out themselves.
I think you're experiencing what a lot of Taiwanese people are experiencing. Like, grew up with a lot of Chinese culture influence, and a lot of them are positive, but the CCP is like fucking with us the whole time. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's a love and hate relationship.
Yeah, exactly. Love China, hate the CCP. That's my.
So I think Taiwan should adopt you.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. I love Taiwan.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much, Elsa, for your time, and we hope that you come to Taiwan sometimes. And please do let us know. Let us know. We'll take you out to eat like really good lulo fan.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be great. I would love that.
Thank you.
Thank
bye
you.
bye.
Have a nice day.
Thank you so much.
Have a good night. Actually,
Have a good
have a
night.
nice day. Bye.
Yeah, you guys have a nice day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.